She thinks, pull the trigger. But if you do not pull the trigger, walk back up that creek and in through the door and take possession of your mind, because your inaction is killing you. Hey friends, welcome back to Booked and Rooted. Today I am coming to you with a book review of My Absolute Darling by Gabriel Tallent. If you're interested in seeing what I thought about this book, keep watching. My Absolute Darling by Gabriel Tallent. I want to give you a brief synopsis of what the book is about. This book takes place in Mendocino, California. At 14, Turtle Alverston knows the use of every gun on her wall. She knows how to snare a rabbit, sharpen a blade, and split a bone. She knows that her daddy loves her more than anything else in the world, and he'll do whatever it takes to keep her with him. But she doesn't know why she feels so different from the other girls at school, why the line between love and pain can be so hard to see, or why making a friend may be the bravest and most terrifying thing she has ever done. So it gives you a kind of an idea of what this book is about. So my initial thoughts, initially I thought this book was going to be a lot like one of my favorite books, and that's The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. I thought this book was going to be a lot like that. It kind of had some similarities to it. It was kind of the same initially I thought it was the same premise, because the father in both books, the father is very like dysfunctional. He's got some things going on, and he pretty much crazy. And so he, you know, everyone around him, especially the people who are closest to him, like his family, his wife, his children, they take, you know, they're the ones that get the worst out of him because they see him every day. And he's the head of the household, so they listen to everything he says, and whatever he says goes, and it's just a disaster. So I thought maybe this book may be similar to that, but it's not really, because this one is it's a lot more trauma, a lot more abuse towards the main character Turtle. Now Turtle, her name is really Julia, but her dad calls her Turtle. Everybody calls her Turtle, and she also has another nickname, Kibble, that her dad calls her as well. So initially, like I said, my initial thoughts were that it reminded me of The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. Quickly after the first, maybe chapter or so, I realized that this book is going to be a lot more traumatic. So Turtle, initially, I realized right off the bat that she's a very strong girl. She's, the things that she lacks in, like, education, like she's not doing very well in school, she's barely passing, things like that. And that's mostly because she, her father doesn't really care if she goes to school or not. That's not his priority, is for her to have an education. I think that he wants her to be, not succeed and not thrive, because he wants to be able to still always have that control over her and always have her under his, under his eye, under his belt. So, the poor girl goes through numerous amounts of abuse. It's not just physical abuse or mental abuse, it's sexual abuse. Her father is like your worst nightmare. And he has an explanation of why he does the things that he does. He blames it all on his father, which is the grandpa that's in the book, briefly. He blames everything on him, of why, he's the way he is. Unfortunately, they don't really go into more detail of that. It doesn't really give us any background on his upbringing, other than what he says, which who knows if that's really right, or if it's something that he just fabricated in his head, because he's obviously not mentally stable. And then he leaves her for a couple months. He leaves and just leaves her on her own. She has to fend for herself. She ends up getting a stronger bond with Jacob, which is the boy that she meets, that she actually saves. She saves his life and his friend Brett's life. She saves Jacob's life more than one time, but she ends up creating a bond with him, and she goes to his house and eats with his family, and his family really kind of accepts her and things like that. But she's always still cautious because she knows that deep down that her father's going to come back, and if he notices the things that she's doing, that she's happy and she's let other people into their bubble, then he's going to be very upset. And of course, that pretty much is what happens. Father does come back eventually, and oddly, he comes back with a 10-year-old child by the name of Cayenne, which I thought was really strange. They never really explained who this child was, where this child came from, where he got this child. He basically traumatizes this child too, because he makes Turtle practice shooting a coin out of the child's hand. Like, he's I don't know. He's horrible. I would just say that. The book is it's just a series of like trauma, a series of like dark, I don't know. It was kind of a depressing read. It was interesting. It was intriguing. I thought that I wasn't going to finish it because I was actually surprised. There was a lot of like run-on sentences. There was a lot of like every scene was so long and drawn out sometimes that I thought that I wouldn't like that. But for some reason, I just kept reading it. I don't know what it was. It was just, I just kept reading it. And, you know, it was a decent book. I'm not raving about it. But I think, oddly, it did remind me slightly of The Great Alone. But The Great Alone had me so distraught. Like, I thought this book was going to make me sad. I wasn't sad at all. I didn't cry. I didn't feel any emotion, which I thought was weird because this poor girl went through a lot. But I think it was because she was so strong. And I knew she was so strong, and I knew that she was going to be alright. I mean, if this was real life, she definitely wouldn't be alright as far as mentally. And I know that these things really do go on in this world, unfortunately. But I knew that she was going to be alright, and I think that's what kind of made me less sad. Plus, I also didn't. The story was different. It was definitely not the same book at all. There was really nothing that she lost, I should say. Like, because when her grandfather passed away, he just had a stroke or had a heart attack or whatever he had, and he was just gone. Like, so it wasn't really like she had a really strong bond. She didn't really have a strong bond with anyone, not even her father, because her father was more just like controlling her. There was really no bond there. And I think that in her mind, she felt like he was all she had, and that even though the things he did was wrong, he loved her, and she loved him because he was her father. But I think that in the end, there's some events that happened that made her say, you know what, this is not right. I'm not going to keep letting this happen. So think about the quote in the beginning of my review. If you think about that, just kind of think about what that could possibly mean. That was actually a profound moment in the story that I think that was a breaking point for her, because I think it made her, at that point she realized that, okay, I'm going to have to do something. I'm going to have to do something. I'm not going to be able to let this keep happening. And I think it was mostly because the things that her father was doing was starting to affect other people. It wasn't just her and her father's bubble anymore. It was her father, it was her, and it was other people that were going to be affected by the things that he was doing, or they were being affected by the things that he was doing. So I think that was a very selfless act of hers, and she had so many thoughts running through her mind, so many things that she thought about but never expressed out of her mouth. So she never said the things that she thought. So it was refreshing to know that even though she took all this abuse and things like that from her father, she knew what was wrong, what was right and what was wrong, and she knew that the things that he was doing wasn't right, but she always used that, her love for him, or the thought that he loves her so much, as her reasoning behind letting those things happen, if that makes any sense. Okay guys, I hope that I did not give out too many spoilers. I always find it really hard to do book reviews because I don't want to give out spoilers, but I also want to make sure that I'm giving an understanding of the book and what the book was about and how I felt about the book. Overall, I gave the book a 3.5 stars. Because, like, I don't know. I enjoyed the book. I don't know. I'm really not sure what there was about it that kept me going, because there was a lot of, like I said, a lot of run-on sentences, a lot of drawn-out scenes that could have been cut down to, I don't know. The book, I guess, could have been cut down probably 100 pages, you know, unless they were going to add more information about what went on with certain other people in the book, like maybe what happened with her mother. You know, just more information about more backstory. But he used a lot of the room that he could have used for a backstory to explain scenes ad nausea, like just drawn out scenes. It was just ridiculous, and I think that's what made me knock that rating down a notch. So 3.5 for me. I do recommend it. It's not highly recommended, but I do recommend this book if you get a chance to, if you like reading things like this. There was a lot of atmospheric, is that even a word? Scenes where you know, they explain the atmosphere and things like that, which I thought was really, really nice. I do love books that are set in places like California, like on the West Coast. I think that was one of the things that interested me because of the scenery that I was able to kind of develop in my mind. But yeah, I recommend it, but like I said, it's not highly recommended. Like I said, 3.5 stars. Let me know if you have read My Absolute Darling, what you thought about it. And thank you so much for checking out my review. And until the next time, I hope you guys are doing well, staying safe. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.